Hi, I'm Kimberly. Welcome to my channel. This is a place where I like to share my sewing makes and talk about capsule wardrobes and minimalism and intentionality around our purchases. In a recent video, I talked about being realistic with my sewing plans and kind of just taking a step back and realizing that the projects that I have planned for myself and the list of things that I want to accomplish was kind of moving me away from sewing as something that was pleasurable and nourishing into more of a space of stress and overwhelm. And so part of that was noticing that I was becoming so overwhelmed and stressed that I wasn't actually able to carve out time for sewing. I had all of these plans for September. I was like, I'm gonna make the hinterland dress and I'm gonna make the Knox pinafore and I'm gonna make these items for my kids. But I was so busy with life that I was just not finding time to sew. And then finally a couple weeks ago, it was like 8:30 at night and my husband was putting my kids to bed and I was like, well, I kind of feel like sewing, but I don't know if I have time. And then I decided, I was like, I'm just going to sew for 30 minutes and let that be my session and see how that goes. Let me tell you, up until that point, I had been sewing in 2 to 3 hour chunks. And the way that I would do projects was I would set out a project for myself, and then between putting together the pattern and having the finished project, it would usually be around 2 or 3 days. And I would just kind of bust out the project in larger chunks of time. But when I had decided for myself to do a smaller chunk of sewing a couple weeks ago, it was actually really pleasurable. And I was able to just look at one step on my sewing pattern and do that step really well and then be done for the night. I actually ended up sewing every other night on the nights that I didn't need to put my kids to bed, and I was able to get so much more sewing time in, and ultimately it allowed me to make less mistakes on the project I was working on and to really understand that pattern better and to work on one technique at a time. This is like a revelation for me, is just sewing in short chunks of time, anywhere between 20 minutes to an hour, and just saying, okay, this is my sweet spot and I will pick this up again in a couple of days. It's really helped me to be able to bring the practice of sewing into more of a consistent ritual for myself and to bring back the element of joy and that sense of focus that only comes when you do things in smaller chunks of time. I highly recommend trying this method out if you are also someone that likes to do projects all at once and kind of sew for 4 or 5 hours straight. I have found that to be a little bit more stressful for me and I've made so many more mistakes. Please feel free to comment below if you also have been sewing in shorter chunks and find that to be really enjoyable as well. If you have any other comments or advice on other ways that you make sewing more enjoyable for yourself, please feel free to let me know, and thanks for watching.